I decided to surprise my wife with lunch at her office, but what I walked in to turn my life upside down. My brother, my own blood, was practically on top of her in her chair, and they were kissing like they hadn't seen each other in years. I stood there, completely stunned, managed to say 5 simple words to her, and then I turned around and walked away. What followed? It made waves, headlines, whispers, messages I didn't even know people had the nerve to send. And to think it all started with me trying to be romantic. You know how people always say love makes you do irrational things? Turns out, it also makes you believe picking up sushi at 11 in the morning is a good idea. I was at this little sushi place on 8th Street, barely bigger than a large closet. The chef there, an old man with silent hands, sliced fish with the kind of focus you see in brain surgeons. My wife, Myra, is obsessed with their dragon rolls. She always talks about how the eel sauce is exactly right. I never understood the details, but I knew it made her smile. And lately, those smiles have been scarce. Scarcer than an empty parking spot in Midtown Manhattan. The truth is, I hadn't been seeing much of her. Ever since her promotion to senior partner at Harper & Lane 3 weeks ago, she's been living in her own whirlwind. Our dinners became little more than her poking at takeout while glued to her phone. I'm proud of her, really I am. She's sharp, strong-willed, and earned every ounce of success. But I couldn't help missing what we used to have. So yeah, maybe showing up with lunch and a cheesy little sticky note that read, "You're my peace in the storm," made me look like a fool. But after 8 years together, sometimes you need to put yourself out there and remind each other why you're still in this. The taxi ride to her building gave me far too much time to doubt myself. What if she was tied up in a meeting? What if her new colleagues looked at me like some insecure, over-affectionate husband who couldn't give his wife space? What if I was just interrupting? But then I thought about the weekend. She had fallen asleep on my shoulder halfway through a movie, and in her half-sleep, she mumbled about missing how we used to be. That gave me hope. Maybe she missed us too. Her building was one of those high-rise, glass-front towers that screamed prestige. Even the scent in the lobby, coffee and cold ambition, was intimidating. I'd been there before for company events or lunch dates, but that day, everything felt different. I was on edge, nervous, maybe because I was starting to feel just how wide the gap between our lives had become. When I reached the 14th floor, I tried to keep things casual. I rehearsed a line in my head, something light like, "Hey, thought you might be hungry," paired with the goofy grin she used to find charming. Her assistant wasn't at her desk, probably out to lunch herself. The whole floor was still and quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're trespassing. Myra's office sat at the very end, the coveted corner spot with the skyline view she had once called a dream. The door wasn't fully closed, left open just a crack. As I walked closer, I heard her laugh. Not the fake one she used for clients. This was the real thing. The laugh that came from deep inside her and used to be just for me. My hand hesitated in the air, halfway to a knock. That laugh, it made something twist in my chest. Felt personal. Felt private. I shouldn't have looked. I know that now, but I did. I leaned forward just enough to see through the gap. What I saw made everything inside me collapse. There she was, Myra, draped back in her luxurious chair, the one she'd been so thrilled about. Her white blouse, the same one I ironed for her that morning, was bunched up around her ribs, and straddling her lap, with his hands all over her, was my brother. His shirt undone, their faces locked together like magnets. Time stopped. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the sushi. I didn't make a scene. I just said 5 words that I didn't even plan, and I left. What happened after that? It spiraled out faster than I could have imagined. Family group chats blew up. Gossip spread like wildfire. My inbox flooded. Somehow, someone had snapped a photo of me leaving the building with a stunned look and a brown bag in hand, and it made its way to one of those local news sites that thrives on drama. People love a betrayal story, especially one that hits too close to home. Myra tried to reach out later. So did my brother. Both with excuses, explanations, reasons. She said it was stress. Said it just happened. Said she still loved me. But love doesn't look like that. Not when it's done behind your back. Not with someone who shares your DNA. And me? I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I moved out the next day. Didn't even take the bed. Just my clothes and a few pictures that still mattered. The world around me shifted. People picked sides. Some were shocked. Some weren't. Turns out there were signs I ignored. Texts she was too quick to delete. Events he claimed he couldn't attend at the last minute. The kind of dots you only connect when it's too late. I kept thinking back to that moment at the sushi shop. Me writing a sticky note like a teenager in love. All while the two people I trusted most were tearing down everything I thought was solid. And yet, I wasn't broken. Not really. I'd survived the worst kind of betrayal, the kind that doesn't just hurt your heart, but makes you question your judgment, your worth, your reality. And in a strange way, that morning gave me a kind of clarity. Because the person I was when I walked into that office is not the person I am now. And maybe, just maybe, that's the silver lining. I walked into her office that afternoon, sushi in hand, expecting nothing more than a quiet lunch break together. But the moment I pushed the door open slightly, the air left my lungs. She was leaned back in her chair, eyes closed, mouth parted in a way that used to be meant for me. On top of her, gripping her hair with one hand and bracing himself on the armrest with the other, was my brother. My younger brother, Brady. His shirt was unbuttoned, hanging loose like he couldn't even be bothered to take it off all the way. The two of them moved in perfect sync, like this wasn't their first time, like they knew each other's tempo intimately. Her legs were wrapped around his waist, her fingers digging into his back, and their kiss looked like something out of a movie, desperate and unstoppable. I just stood there, completely paralyzed, a bag of sushi weighing me down like I'd strapped concrete to my wrist. My mind scrambled to rationalize what I was seeing, to invent a reason, any reason that didn't end with betrayal. But there wasn't one. This wasn't some heat-of-the-moment accident. This was calculated, repeated, real. That was my wife. And my brother. Then she opened her eyes, Mira, and saw me through the door. We locked eyes. I waited for panic, for guilt, for even a flicker of surprise. Instead, she smiled. A real, easy smile like she was happy I showed up. Brady turned to follow her gaze. When his eyes landed on me, he didn't flinch. No panic. No embarrassment. He just gave me that stupid smug look he always wore when we were kids. The one he used every time he took something of mine and got away with it. I should have shouted, thrown the sushi, cursed them both out. Instead, I just said 5 words, cold and quiet. Don't bother. I'm done. Then I turned and left. Most people imagine they'd explode after catching their spouse having sex with a sibling. But I didn't rage, didn't cry, didn't punch walls. I walked 3 whole miles, from her office downtown to the apartment in Brooklyn Heights we used to call home, still holding the sushi bag like it mattered. It was one of those suffocating New York summer afternoons. The kind where the sun seems to cling to your skin and every breath tastes like hot pavement. By the time I crossed the Brooklyn Bridge, my shirt clung to my back, my chest burned from more than the heat, and whatever was leaking from my eyes might have been tears, though I don't remember crying. People stared. I probably looked insane. A guy in office clothes, drenched in sweat, gripping takeout like it held the answers to his life. In some way, I guess it did. I reached our building, climbed the stairs, and unlocked the door. Everything looked the same, and that made it worse. Her coffee cup was still in the sink. That ugly pillow she insisted on buying, the one stitched with "home is where the heart is," was perched mockingly on the couch. Her yoga mat was still rolled up in the corner. The whole place reeked of that designer perfume she swore by. Chanel something, the one I used to think made her smell like magic. Now it just made my stomach churn. I sat on our bed. Or mine now, I guess. Sushi still in hand. Trying to think. What was I even supposed to do in a moment like this? Call someone? Who? A therapist? My mom? A lawyer? Then my eyes landed on all her stuff. The little jewelry box overflowing with the trinkets I'd given her over birthdays and anniversaries. Our wedding photos still framed, still smiling. Her suits pressed and lined up perfectly in the closet. The ones that made her look like she ran the world. How long had this been going on? How far back did the lies stretch? I sifted through memories like old receipts, hunting for warning signs. All those nights she stayed late at the office. Business trips that came out of nowhere. Her phone always in hand, smiling at messages she didn't share. I thought it was work stress. I thought she was pushing for that promotion. And Brady, my baby brother, the same kid I taught to ride a bike who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during movies. Lately, he'd been coming by more. Said he wanted to be close again. Said he missed family dinners. Turns out he just missed my wife. Around 6 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was her. Can we talk? This doesn't change everything. I stared at the message like it was written in another language. This doesn't change everything? I'd walked in on her screwing my brother and she thought we could sit down and talk it out like we forgot to pay the power bill. I didn't reply. What was I going to say? Sure, babe. Let's chat about how long you've been screwing Brady behind my back. I dropped the sushi in the trash, sat back on the bed, and let the silence wash over me. For the first time that day, it hit me. My life as I knew it was officially over. Brady never messaged. Not that evening, not the day after, not even once since. But that was exactly how Brady operated. He didn't justify his actions. He just did what he wanted, and everyone else was expected to adjust. His silence said it all. No guilt. No remorse. Just Brady being Brady. And if I had an issue, well, that was on me to sort out. The most pathetic part? I kept checking my phone anyway, hoping to see his name pop up. Not expecting a heartfelt apology, but maybe some acknowledgement. Anything to confirm that he realized he'd detonated our family. But nothing ever came. After 2 days of agonizing silence, I broke down and called my mom. That was a huge mistake. Oh, sweetheart, she said, and I could already tell where this was going. Her tone was gentle, but it wasn't sympathy. It was disappointment, not aimed at them, at me. Maybe you and Mira just weren't as happy as you thought, she said. And then came the classic Brady defense. Brady's always been more assertive. That's what she called it, assertive. Like when he started dating the girl I'd been with in high school, or when he presented my college project as his own and snagged the internship that should have been mine. Or the time he wrecked my car and somehow convinced our parents that I was partly responsible for lending it to him. No matter what Brady did, he wasn't a manipulator or a backstabber. He was just assertive. Mom, he's sleeping with my wife. I know, honey, but things like this happen. Maybe it's all for the best. You've always liked comfort a bit too much. Maybe now everyone has a shot at real happiness. Even she was siding with them. Before I could even finish explaining, she was already rationalizing their actions. That's when the real weight of it hit me. This wasn't just a betrayal in the usual sense. It wasn't just a marriage ending. It was a total replacement. Mira didn't just want out of the marriage. She wanted Brady in it. And my own family thought that was somehow logical. Like I'd just been keeping her spot warm until the real man came along. This wasn't infidelity. It was erasure. And I was the last to know. 3 days passed with no contact from either of them. And then Mira appeared at my door, calm as anything. She looked immaculate. Navy blue dress, the one I used to love on her, styled like she was about to walk into a photo shoot. Her hair and makeup were flawless. And she was holding a pristine white envelope with gold-trimmed corners, like she was handing me an invitation to an exclusive gala. Hey, she said, like nothing had happened. Like we were friendly neighbors catching up over the fence. Like she hadn't detonated our marriage 72 hours earlier. I didn't tell her to come in, but she stepped inside anyway, setting her purse down on the kitchen counter like it was still hers. Her boldness was nauseating. I know you're upset, she began, and I almost laughed in disbelief. Upset? Like I was sulking over a forgotten anniversary card. But I think we can do this maturely. There's no need for drama. She gently slid the envelope across the counter with her manicured fingers. Pale pink polish, salon perfect. Probably funded by Brady. What's this? I asked. My proposed divorce terms, she answered, as casually as if she were suggesting where to order dinner. My lawyer drafted something equitable. It works for both of us. I opened it. The first thing I noticed was how polished it all looked. Thick paper, formal letterhead, everything screaming importance and finality. Meant to intimidate, to overpower. But I read through it. Line after line, my pulse started climbing. $20,000. That's what she thought 8 years of my life were worth. 20 grand and a quick goodbye. No mention of the apartment we'd chosen together and lived in for half a decade. I had painted every wall in that place, repaired every leaky pipe. But apparently it was under her name for tax efficiency, she once claimed. Something I agreed to without hesitation. We were a team, after all. No mention of the design firm we'd built together. I handled the work behind the scenes while she networked, charmed, and branded herself as the face of it all. I did the grunt work, and now she was walking away with it. Sole legal ownership, thanks to some clever legal maneuvering also for tax reasons. No spousal support. No asset division. No recognition of the years I put my ambitions on pause so she could chase hers. Just a lump sum and a suggestion that I fade out of the picture quietly. "You're being emotional," she said, watching my expression harden as I skimmed the document. "I get that this is painful, but if we handle it civilly, everyone comes out okay." "Everyone," I said, struggling to stay calm. "How exactly do I come out okay in this?" She exhaled like I was being unreasonable. "You get a fresh start. Clean break. No entanglements. You can rebuild from scratch. $20,000 is more than fair." And then she said it. "Let's not pretend this marriage was working. This just speeds things up." She used my name like she was disciplining a stubborn child. Condescending. Cold. I wanted to hurl the papers back at her. Scream that she didn't get to rewrite history just because she got bored and found someone shinier. But I didn't. Because suddenly I realized something even more important than my rage. She had come here looking to close the chapter with grace, maybe even make herself feel like the bigger person. But this wasn't closure. This wasn't peace. This was a declaration of war. I finally saw it all clearly for the first time since I walked into her office. This wasn't a peace offering, it was a payout. She wasn't giving me money out of kindness. She was buying my silence, my cooperation, and my complete erasure from her world. That 20 grand? It wasn't generosity. It was a price tag for disappearing. "I need time to think," I told her. Her tone turned clipped. "There's nothing to consider. It's all laid out plainly." I said I need time. There was a flicker in her expression. Annoyance, maybe, or just plain impatience. For a moment, the mask dropped. I saw the same woman who, just days earlier, had her hands all over my brother. Cold. Calculating. Over me. "Fine," she muttered, snatching up her bag. "But David, don't drag this out. Let's not make it more painful than it has to be." After she left, I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at the stack of papers for what felt like an eternity. Then I picked up my phone and called Karima Doyle. She'd been handling my legal matters ever since my business was just a one-man freelance gig. Smart as a whip. No nonsense. Always saw through the smoke and mirrors. 20 minutes later, I was seated across from her desk as she leafed through the documents Myra had handed me. She made a few low sounds of disbelief, her brows steadily climbing until finally, she burst out laughing. Not a soft chuckle, full-on wheezing laughter. "This is golden," she said, wiping her eyes. "Absolutely golden." "Let me guess," I said. "Everything's been in her name for tax efficiency." She nodded. "And the business you've been running side by side?" "All hers, apparently." Karima leaned back, her smile fading into a knowing look. "David, your wife isn't just walking away. She's been planning this for a long time. Your apartment, your company, probably your finances. She's been cutting you out of your own life, piece by piece." The room tilted around me. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this isn't a divorce proposal. It's hush money. She wants you to vanish quietly so she and your brother can start their next chapter clean. No loose ends. No legal battles." She slid the papers aside and gave me a hard look. "The only real question is, are you going to take the bribe? Or are you going to fight for what's rightfully yours? Being married for 8 years teaches you more than you think. Like how someone saves files, their naming conventions, where they stash the things they don't want seen. Myra always prided herself on being the strategic mind between us. The planner. The forward thinker. But she seemed to forget I was the one who built all our tech systems. I set up the cloud storage, backups, shared drives, and I kept backups. Of everything. While she and Brady flaunted their affair across social media like they'd won something, I locked myself in the spare bedroom and combed through 5 years of data. Bank records, client invoices, tax forms. Every dull detail Myra had gleefully handed off to me while she played boss at gala events. But the social media stuff, that was its own brand of poison. Brady flexing shirtless by a lake. Myra glowing in a gown I'd never seen, standing beside him at some industry event. Their followers gushing about how great they looked together, congratulating them as if they hadn't torched someone's life to get there. I stayed focused. 18 months back, something strange popped up. A $15,000 transfer from our business account to a company called Harper Communications LLC. Never heard of it. One quick search told me it was registered under Myra's maiden name. Co-owner? Brady. I kept digging. More transfers. All below the radar, amounts small enough to avoid any flags. 3,000 here, 5,000 there. Marketing costs I never signed off on. The timing stood out. Bursts of spending around our anniversary, Christmas, my birthday. Like she was rewarding herself for betrayal. And then the Morrison project, the one that was supposed to be our big break. We billed $75,000. Only $45,000 ever made it into our business account. The rest? Quietly funneled to Harper Communications. Brady's fingerprints were everywhere. That sham company had been up and running for 2 years, siphoning money from projects I managed, clients I landed, and work I did, all while I thought we were building something together. Myra was the face of the firm, the glamorous success story. Meanwhile, I was the workhorse behind the scenes. Around midnight, my phone rang. "Please tell me you're not still staring at spreadsheets," Karima said. "It's worse than we imagined," I said, pulling up a new file. "They've had a shadow business going for 2 years. Myra's been billing our clients for fake services and diverting the money through her and Brady's company." She went quiet. "That's not just infidelity," she said at last. "That's fraud. Wire fraud. Tax fraud. Maybe even embezzlement. And that's not all." I clicked open another folder. She handled all client communication, remember? I found dozens of emails where she pitched services I never even knew about. Services Harper Communications supposedly provided. "How much?" she asked. I scrolled. "At least $150,000. Probably more if I dig further." Karima let out a breath. "That Morrison deal alone should have set you up for years." "Yeah," I said bitterly. "Instead, they used it to fund their secret life. We need to act. Now, if they get wind of this, they'll start scrubbing everything. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. Grounds: infidelity, fraud, breach of fiduciary duty. And we're naming both of them. Both. Brady isn't just the affair partner. He's complicit, a full partner in the scheme. That makes him just as accountable." After I hung up, I went back to the files. The more I found, the clearer it became. This wasn't a messy romance gone too far. It was a slow, deliberate extraction. They'd been building this exit strategy for years, transferring funds, building new networks, locking me out. That 20 grand offer wasn't insulting because it was small. It was insulting because they thought I wouldn't notice they'd already bled over 7 times that from me. I found more proof. Joint credit cards I never saw. A lease for a Manhattan apartment signed by both of them 6 months ago. Licenses, tax filings, all painting the picture of a couple living a whole second life while I was still booking anniversary dinners and buying flowers. But what chilled me the most wasn't the betrayal. It was the precision. Every dollar they stole was hidden in plain sight, disguised with invoices, cloaked in company language, wrapped in professional formatting. If I hadn't been the one handling the books, I never would have caught it. They weren't just planning a future without me. They were planning to erase me entirely. And they almost succeeded. The thing about being overlooked your entire life is that people assume you're not watching. They mistake silence for ignorance and kindness for weakness. Mira thought she could wrap this up like two civilized adults. That was her plan. Fine. Let's see how civilized she felt when federal investigators started digging into her company's financial skeletons. By the time the sun broke the horizon, I had a binder 3 inches thick and a game plan that would have made Karima proud. If this was war, I was stepping up to the plate ready to knock it out of the park. The divorce papers landed on her desk like a sledgehammer on a porcelain vase, delivered by Kareem's paralegal at precisely 9:47 a.m., in the middle of her team's weekly meeting. It was deliberate, public, devastating, just like the way she'd blindsided me. By noon, Mira was at my door, fists pounding like she meant to tear the place down. Her voice, once always cool and polished, was now screeching and frantic. "Open the door, David. We have to talk." I didn't move right away. I made coffee, scrolled through the news, read an email or two. I let her stay out there, unraveling, letting the entire hallway hear her fall apart. When I finally opened the door, she stormed in like she still had a right to anything in my life. Her appearance was a mess. Hair in disarray, makeup smeared, her once perfect navy business suit wrinkled like she'd spent the night clawing at it in frustration. "You can't do this to me," she hissed, shaking the papers in my face. "You're going to destroy everything I've worked for." "I already did. What now?" I asked, cool as steel. "Don't act like you don't know," she spat. "The accusations, the fraud stuff, that's all just, it's standard consulting work. You're twisting it into something it's not." Even now, caught red-handed, she was trying to spin it, trying to make me feel like the villain. 150 grand, Mira. That's what you and Brady siphoned from our clients. Explain to me how that's standard." Her face lost all its color. Still, she clung to the lie. "You don't understand how business works," she whispered. "Sometimes you have to what? Commit felonies? Defraud your husband? Sleep with his brother while you're at it." That's when the tears came. But they weren't real, not by a long shot. They were the kind she used to charm parking officers and manipulate clients. Not grief performance. "You're blowing up my entire career over feelings," she sobbed. "My business partners are asking questions. Clients are backing out. This is your fault. You already destroyed everything, Mira," I said. That made her tears stop cold. For a second, I saw it. The real Mira. The one behind the masks. The ice beneath the smile. "Fine," she said in a low, threatening voice I hadn't heard since our worst arguments. "But I'm not going down alone. You think anyone's gonna hire you after this? You think you can nuke my career and come out untouched? We'll see about that." She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to make the walls vibrate. But the day wasn't over. Around 6 in the evening, Brady showed up. He looked like hell. Thinner. Gaunt. That carefree arrogance he always carried had been replaced by a nervous slump in his shoulders. "We need to talk," he muttered, eyes glued to the floor. "Do we?" I asked flatly. "Look, I know you're angry. I get it. But this stuff with the lawyers, the fraud charges, it's going way too far. It's not what it looks like." I just stared at him. My younger brother. The one I raised. Protected. The one who slept with my wife and bled my business dry. And he had the gall to say it wasn't personal. "It just happened, okay?" he stammered. "Things got complicated." "No, Brady. You made it personal the minute you unzipped your pants in her office." He winced. "Good. Come on, David. We're family. We can work this out without turning it into a circus. Mira screwed up, yeah, but we can fix this. All of us can move forward." "Forward to what exactly? You two playing house while I pretend this didn't happen? You expect Thanksgiving dinners and group selfies. People get divorced all the time," he shrugged. "It doesn't mean we can't still be brothers." I laughed, bitter and hollow. He honestly thought this was a sitcom-level issue, that we could gloss over it like a bad joke. "Get out," I said. "David, get of my apartment, out of my life. And tell Mira if she shows up again, "I'm filing a restraining order." He looked like he wanted to argue, but something in my expression must have stopped him. Maybe it was that I wasn't yelling. Maybe it was because I didn't look broken. Maybe he realized I wasn't the guy who used to clean up after him anymore. "You're making a mistake," he said from the hallway. "You're hurting all of us." "You already handled that part," I said, shutting the door in his face. Later that night, I poured myself a glass of scotch and sat down in my own apartment, surrounded by furniture they hadn't stolen and memories they hadn't corrupted. The quiet didn't feel suffocating anymore. Felt earned. Then my phone buzzed. "Unknown number. Saw your story on at Boss Spouse T. Good for you, man." I opened Instagram out of curiosity. The page, one Mira used to follow religiously, was now plastered with screenshots and gossip. Apparently, someone had leaked the juicy parts of the divorce filing. Headline: Cheating wife and brother-in-law face embezzlement scandal. Photos of Mira and Brady laughing at some gala filled the post. The comments were savage. And for once, I didn't feel ashamed. I felt vindicated. She wanted to play games, so I rewrote the rules. Social media exploded. Comments flooded in, sharp and scathing, thousands of strangers condemning them, praising me, and sharing their own war stories of betrayal and justice. My notifications were a nonstop barrage. My story was blowing up, the kind of viral moment fueled by scandal, drama, and pure, unapologetic vengeance. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Harper? Jessica Chun here, Channel 7 News. We'd love to have you on for an interview about your divorce case. It's really resonating with viewers." I ended the call without replying, but I couldn't stop the grin spreading across my face. They really thought I'd just disappear quietly, take their pathetic settlement and vanish like an embarrassing stain. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Within 2 days of the story breaking, thanks to that viral post from at Boss Spouse, every major gossip outlet had jumped on board. The narrative was simple, cinematic, and infuriating. Accomplished career woman cheats with husband's brother, gets exposed for embezzlement, and then tries to silence the fallout with a laughable payoff. It had everything: infidelity, family betrayal, corporate theft, and a classic underdog versus power player twist. Brady's carefully polished image was the first thing to implode. His whole online brand had been centered on rugged authenticity, pushing supplements, gym content, and motivational rants about loyalty and brotherhood. That irony was too rich for people to ignore. His sponsors certainly didn't. Nutriax was the first to bail. They posted some PR-safe statement about values and alignment, but everyone knew the real reason. Then Fitgear dropped his affiliate deals. Within 72 hours, even his neighborhood supplement store had taken down his posters and erased his name from their site. His followers were vanishing by the thousands. The comments? Savage. Each muscle-flexing post turned into a comment war zone. Solid chest. Bro, shame your spine's missing. Did your brother let you keep the protein powder too? Morals in the gym bag, huh? But the online hit was nothing compared to what was happening offline. Iron Brotherhood, Brady's gym, the one he'd opened 2 years ago with what now looked like misappropriated funds, was bleeding members. The parking lot, once buzzing with regulars, was turning into a ghost town. Turns out, people don't want fitness inspiration from a backstabbing fraud. Then there was Myra. If Brady's downfall was dramatic, hers was downright operatic. Harper and Lane had built a reputation on discretion and prestige. Suddenly, their prized new senior partner was front-page gossip, and not in a flattering light. Her colleagues grew cold. Meetings started accidentally dropping from her calendar. Her once adoring assistant started offering clipped responses and avoiding eye contact. Then the letters started. Thursday morning, a stack of manila envelopes showed up, one on every major client's desk. Inside, screen-grabbed court documents, professionally printed with little notes like, "Thought you'd want to know who's handling your assets." It was brutal. Perfectly legal, too. The Morrison Group was the first to walk, $60K in expected billings, gone with a polite email about reputation alignment. Everyone knew what that meant. They didn't want their name tied to a woman accused of defrauding her own spouse. Then came the others. The restaurant franchise rebrand? Pulled. The tech startup launching in fall? Gone. The nonprofit's gala campaign? Cancelled. Corporate networks are tight. Word spreads fast, especially when it involves sex, fraud, and betrayal. Meanwhile, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Channel 4. Channel 11. Podcast called Betrayed and Betrayers. Even a few documentary producers who wanted to explore the emotional weight of modern betrayal. I wasn't speaking to any of them yet, but I kept the voicemails. Every new offer came with more zeros than the last. The most unexpected call came Friday afternoon. My father. Growing up, Brady was always the golden child. Dad had endless patience for his slip-ups, excuses for his temper, praise for his charm. Me? I was just the dependable one, reliable, expected to hold things together. So when I saw Dad's name flash across my screen, I almost didn't answer. His voice came through rough, hesitant. David, I've been seeing the news. I waited, let him sit in the silence. I just wanted to say, he cleared his throat. No matter how this plays out, you've got to stand your ground. Fight for what's yours. I froze. What? Your brother? What he did was unforgivable. Both of them. Doesn't matter how likable he is or what potential he's got. You don't do that to family. I couldn't remember the last time he'd taken my side over Brady's. Should have felt like a win, like I'd finally been seen. But all I felt was hollow. It felt strange, almost bitter, watching people rush to support me now. When growing up, I was always in the shadow of Brady. When he'd taken credit for my wins, stolen girls I was serious about, and manipulated everyone into thinking his troubles were somehow mine to solve. Now, suddenly, there was praise, validation, and encouragement, especially from Dad. Thanks, really. But where was all this when I needed it the most? The media whirlwind was spinning faster every day. It wasn't just neighborhood gossip anymore. Reporters were digging into our family's business empire. The Wall Street Journal reached out about financial misconduct in family-run companies. A 60 Minutes producer left a message, saying our story tapped into broader American themes: trust, betrayal, and the breaking point between love and loyalty. Karima was swamped. Other attorneys were contacting her to discuss how our case might redefine legal boundaries in family businesses entangled with adultery and fraud. She sipped her coffee across from me, confident as ever. You're turning into a symbol, she said. The guy who didn't stay quiet. The man who fought back when most others would have just signed the papers and faded away. And maybe she was right. That night, I got a message that cut through all the chaos. A man from Ohio, total stranger, messaged me saying his wife ran off with his best friend and tried to rob him of the business they built from scratch. I saw your story. Filed my own suit yesterday. Thank you for showing me I didn't have to take it lying down. Then came another message. This one from Texas. A woman whose sister had siphoned money from their joint family restaurant. Then another, from a small business owner who discovered his own partner had been poaching clients for years. People were waking up. They were seeing it was possible to push back, to stop letting betrayal erase them. Mira and Brady had assumed I'd go quietly, that their charm would shield them, that I'd be too ashamed to fight. But they'd underestimated me. And in doing so, they'd created something far more dangerous than an angry man. They'd created someone calm, strategic, legally armed, with an ever-growing crowd rooting for justice to prevail. Their curated little love story was cracking in public, and people couldn't look away. The mediation was set for 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. Harper and Lane's conference room, a supposedly neutral setting that still reeked of memory and betrayal. Just stepping back into that building felt like walking into a ghost story. But this time, I wasn't carrying sushi and delusion. This time, I had Karima beside me, her sharp-as-nails paralegal Marcus, and Dr. Sarah Chun, an expert forensic accountant whose spreadsheets could expose secrets like no one else. The room itself looked like power incarnate. Glass walls offering a panoramic view of Manhattan. A massive marble table that screamed authority. Modern art on the walls that probably cost more than my first car. Mira was already seated when we arrived. She looked impeccable, like every thread of her wardrobe had been tailored for intimidation. A designer black suit, hair slicked back to perfection, makeup airbrushed into flawlessness. She looked like control personified. But if you knew her the way I did, the signs were there. Her fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted her documents. Her eyes kept darting toward the entrance, half expecting sirens and arrest warrants. Her lawyer, a polished silver-haired veteran from Manhattan charging $500,000 an hour, seemed uneasy, like he was regretting getting involved. The legal world had begun whispering about our case, and no one wanted their name linked to a sinking ship. Brady breezed in 15 minutes late. Classic him. But his swagger was gone. Instead of his usual high-end attire, he wore a wrinkled, oversized suit like he'd borrowed it in a rush. His hair was messy, uncut. His posture, deflated. No eye contact. Not with me, not with Mira, not even his own team. He collapsed into a chair like a student sent to detention. The golden boy had finally lost his shine. Ladies and gentlemen, the mediator began. An ex-judge with a face carved from stone and a tone that had likely witnessed every version of domestic collapse imaginable. We're here to begin discussion on the legal dissolution of the marriage between David and Mira Harper. We'll also address related matters concerning Mr. Brady Harper. Karima didn't bother with polite small talk. She reached into her leather case and placed a stack of files on the table. The papers landed with a solid thump that spoke volumes. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about consequences. We're demanding $175,000 in damages. Her voice rang out sharply, slicing through the heavy tension in the conference room. Along with full control of the design company, and additional damages for fraudulent activity and breach of trust. The air stilled. Myra's expression shifted dramatically, from smug to stunned, and then pale as snow. Her attorney fumbled with a stack of documents, visibly panicked, probably realizing they'd underestimated us badly. "You've lost your mind," Mira said eventually, her tone wavering. "This is outrageous." "Is it?" Dr. Chin asked coolly, opening her laptop and linking it to the conference screen. "Let's break down the numbers." The next 15 minutes felt like justice being carved into stone. With calm precision, Dr. Chin unfolded the truth, transaction after transaction, every diverted dollar, every payment rerouted from our shared business into Brady and Myra's secret operation. She had visuals, charts, timelines, and bank statements that built an airtight case. Even Brady's lawyer started scribbling notes. The Morrison account alone was siphoned for $30,000, she explained, highlighting the figures on a large spreadsheet. Peterson Group, $22,000. Rodriguez Campaign, $18,000. These aren't isolated events. This pattern goes back 27 months. Mira tried to cut in multiple times, but Dr. Chin kept moving through her presentation, each slide a blow to their credibility. Screens filled with bank records, mismatched invoices, and email trails. Evidence no one could argue against. The total amount stolen is $147,312, she concluded. That's not including the loss in business value or the professional damage done to Mr. Harper's name. Brady's lawyer leaned in and whispered something. Brady replied quietly, shook his head, and did something completely out of character. He stood up and walked out. No scene. No words. He simply rose, muttered something about needing air, and left. Through the glass walls, I watched him step into the elevator and vanish. His lawyer sat stunned for a moment, then silently packed up his things and followed. "Well," the mediator said after an awkward beat, "it appears Mr. Brady Harper is withdrawing from these negotiations." Mira stared at the closed door, her eyes wide. The man she had risked everything for, her partner in every sense, had deserted her mid-battle. "Mira," her lawyer murmured, "we need to reevaluate our position." "No," I said, finally speaking. "I'm done with the deception." The words rang through the room like a final verdict. Mira turned toward me, really looking for the first time, and for just a fleeting second, Something that resembled regret flickered in her eyes. "David, we're finished here," Karima said firmly, closing her folder. "Our proposal remains $75,000, full business ownership, and a public admission of wrongdoing. You have 48 hours to accept." We walked out, leaving Mira sitting in that sleek, sterile room, surrounded by attorneys who couldn't save her and betrayed by the man she'd chosen over me. She was right where she'd landed herself. But this legal win was just the spark. In the months that followed, their carefully curated lives began to unravel in spectacular fashion. And the ironic part? I wasn't even lifting a finger. Brady was the first to fade. After that exit from mediation, he ghosted the internet. For someone whose life depended on his influencer status, disappearing from social media was professional suicide. His gym, Iron Brotherhood, barely survived another 8 weeks. With sponsors gone and members canceling, he couldn't make rent. The landlord changed the locks. Those who still followed him saw the decline play out online. Forced positivity, comeback posts with a fraction of the usual likes, videos shot in dingy apartments or someone's unfinished basement. Then nothing. Complete silence. Rumors floated through the family network. He'd moved back to Albany with our parents. The same mom who'd always defended his ambition wasn't thrilled to have her 32-year-old son mooching off her while dodging creditors and angry ex-associates. Myra's downfall was slower but far more public. Harper and Lane didn't fire her immediately. That would have looked suspicious. Instead, they erased her influence piece by piece. Her projects were reassigned. Her spacious corner office became a cubicle on a lower floor. She stopped getting invited to client meetings. In 6 weeks, she went from being a star to a ghost. When state regulators started poking into financial misconduct at the firm, her position became a liability. Management gave her 2 choices: resign quietly or be publicly dismissed. She took the first option, saving her law license but losing everything else. Reinventing her career in her mid-30s wasn't easy. New York's legal world is tight-knit, and word of her involvement in fraud had already spread. Consulting gigs trickled in, but they paid far less than her previous income. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. With the settlement funds, I launched my new design firm from scratch: new brand, new studio, new vision. Second Story Design was born in a repurposed loft, surrounded by people who respected my leadership, not undermined it. And for the first time in years, I felt free, standing on ground I built, answering only to myself, and no longer wasting energy trying to fix what was never mine to save. In Brooklyn, for the first time in ages, I was genuinely passionate about the work I was doing. The invitation to join the podcast came out of nowhere. Betrayed and Rebuilding was seeking guests who had turned personal heartbreak into meaningful reinvention. The episode we recorded, The Man Who Wouldn't Disappear, skyrocketed, downloaded over 500,000 times within the first month. And from there, more doors opened. I began speaking at men's circles, leadership panels, even getting featured in Entrepreneur magazine for turning devastation into entrepreneurial growth. Companies began reaching out to me, not just for my skills, but because my story resonated. They wanted to collaborate with someone who understood how crucial honesty and resilience really were. The irony was rich. Mira and Brady had tried to wipe me out of my own narrative, erase my presence so they could build a life uninterrupted by guilt or complication. But instead, their betrayal became the spark that forced me to step into who I was always capable of being. Someone I hadn't had the courage or urgency to become until then. 6 months after discovering them tangled together in that office chair, I was thriving. I was grounded, confident, and successful in a way I hadn't felt in years. Meanwhile, they were picking up the pieces, forced to confront the consequences of choices they once believed were clever. I didn't wish them pain. I didn't have to. Life had a way of settling the balance without my help. 8 months after I'd walked away from the mess, my phone rang one quiet Tuesday evening. I was still at my new workspace at Second Story Design, putting the final touches on a campaign for a tech company that had specifically reached out because of the podcast. Business had taken off, far beyond what I once imagined possible back when I was stuck doing all the labor while Mira basked in the recognition. "David," came a faint, trembling voice, so soft I barely recognized it. It was Mira. Yeah, I replied, cautious. There was a pause. I could hear her shaky breath through the receiver. I missed the way you believed in me. Her words hung heavy, floating in the silence between us. Outside my window, the city pulsed with life. People walking home, grabbing dinner, stepping into the night. All moving on, living their ordinary lives. I said nothing. I didn't need to. I know I have no right to call, she went on, her voice laced with regret. I ruined the best thing that ever happened to me. But I can't stop thinking about how you used to look at me like I mattered, like I could conquer the world. I leaned back in my chair, watching the glow of Brooklyn's skyline. Once upon a time, a call like this would have gutted me. Hearing her in pain would have pulled me right back into fixer mode, desperate to help, to heal, to forgive. But that version of me didn't survive what happened in her office. He'd been buried along with our marriage. Brady's gone, she whispered. He left 3 weeks ago. Didn't say a word. Just vanished. I wasn't surprised. Brady always disappeared when life turned inconvenient. When money dried up and the followers vanished. When truth stared him down, he ran. It was what he did best. Find something good, exploit it, and bolt when it crumbled. I'm sorry, I told her. And I meant it. Not for her loss, but for the clarity she'd only now gained. The things I had accepted about Brady long ago were finally visible to her too. I really believed it was real, she said, her voice cracking. That he loved me like you did. But he didn't, did he? He was just using me. Just like he used you. That was the truth she wanted to avoid. She was seeking comfort, forgiveness, a clean slate. She wanted to be told she was just another pawn in Brady's game. But we both knew better. Brady didn't make you betray our company, I said calmly. He didn't make you offer me hush money. He didn't force you to pick him over us. She was crying then, soft, broken sobs. The kind that used to melt me, used to pull me right back in. I know, she whispered. I know I destroyed everything. I don't know how to put myself back together. I don't know how to go back to who I was. You can't, Mira. Neither of us can. The past is gone. There was a breath on the line. Hesitant. Fragile. Do you think we could try again? Maybe start over? I've changed. I've learned so much. I can do better, be better. Her words didn't stir rage. Only exhaustion. I was tired of being her fallback. Tired of being her safety net when things fell apart. Tired of being asked to rebuild what she had chosen to destroy. No, I answered plainly. She started to protest. Please, David. I know I don't deserve. But I no longer do, I interrupted. Silence. What? I don't believe in you anymore, Mira. I don't believe in the person you showed me you really are when you thought I wasn't looking. I don't believe in someone capable of orchestrating my downfall. I let the words land. There was nothing left to say. While I was out choosing anniversary presents and carefully arranging sushi into lunchboxes, she stayed silent on the other end of the line. The pause stretched so long I wondered if she'd hung up. But then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, I get it. After the call ended, I remained in my office for what felt like hours, staring out over a city that somehow felt more mine now than it ever did when I was married. That conversation should have closed a chapter. Instead, it felt like realizing I'd lost interest in a book long ago and just now decided to put it down. Brady vanished like he always did once things stopped being fun. The charming golden child who'd coasted through life on charm and convenience finally stumbled into a problem that couldn't be smoothed over with a smile. His solution: disappear and leave someone else to deal with the destruction. They were well matched, honestly. Both of them were used to taking what they wanted and assuming there'd be no consequences. Pretty faces, easy words, and a belief that everything could be forgiven with the right kind of performance. But life eventually calls your bluff. Not everything can be repaired. Some damage is permanent. The building in Queens smelled like burnt coffee and aging carpet. It was modest. No fancy decor. Just a circle of metal chairs and 23 men sitting shoulder to shoulder. They ranged in age, some barely older than college kids, others clearly grandfathers. but we all shared the same haunted look. Stories of betrayal, desertion, the slow, painful recognition that being kind doesn't mean you'll be treated with kindness in return. "This is David Marcus," the group leader said as I stood up. "He's sharing tonight. I've been doing this for half a year now. Men's support groups, networking events, even a few lectures at universities. Telling my story had become a strange kind of therapy. The words didn't sting anymore, they taught. A year ago, I was the guy who thought making heart-shaped cucumber slices for my wife's lunch was peak romance. I started. A few of the guys chuckled. I let people take credit for my work because I thought being generous made me valuable. I thought mopping up other people's chaos made me strong. I looked around the room and saw the pain reflected back at me. Good men used and discarded by people they trusted. Told their goodness was weakness, their loyalty was foolishness, that their sacrifices were just enablers for others' selfishness. I caught my wife with my brother, I continued. Not some gentle, emotional moment. Full on, clothes half off. It had been going on a while. And my first reaction? I wanted to apologize. I wanted to know what I had done wrong. Several heads nodded. They'd been there. But betrayal isn't a reflection of your value. When someone lies, cheats, or leaves, it reveals who they are, not who you are. I explained the lawsuit, the financial lies, the decision to stand my ground instead of vanishing quietly. But more than that, I talked about the realization that I didn't have to be the cleanup crew anymore. I used to think love meant making room for everyone's mess, that being a good man meant absorbing pain and making excuses. If I just stayed patient, maybe one day they'd finally see how much I was giving them. Marcus leaned forward. What changed? I stopped rescuing people who didn't want help, I replied. I stopped apologizing for wanting the bare minimum of decency. I stopped treating betrayal like a riddle to solve, and started seeing it as a line that shouldn't be crossed. The silence in the room wasn't awkward. It was reverent, like they all saw their own reflections in my story. My brother ran away when the consequences caught up with him. My ex-wife's world collapsed. My mother still believes I should have been more forgiving. But I don't feel bad about any of it. Their problems aren't mine to fix. Their regret isn't mine to carry. A man near the back raised his hand. How do you know the difference between support and being used? Support is helping someone grow, I said. Being used means letting someone else destroy you to stay comfortable. True support has limits. It's mutual. It doesn't ask you to burn down your own life just to keep someone else warm. After the group ended, a few guys came up to speak one-on-one. A teacher who found out his wife had been sleeping with her boss. A business owner whose partner drained their accounts behind his back. A dad whose brother kept begging for loans, then mocked him for caring about money. I thought being the better person meant staying silent, one man said. No, I told him. Being the better person means holding the line. Refusing to let someone you love keep destroying you just because you care. As I drove back to my Brooklyn loft, I reflected on the man I used to be. The one who would have spent tonight worrying about whether Mira was okay, whether Brady needed something, whether my mom was disappointed. The man who used to strategize endlessly about how to fix broken things he didn't even break. That version of me died quietly in an office one Tuesday afternoon. I don't miss him. He was kind, loyal, tender. None of those were bad traits, but they were paired with fear. Fear of confrontation. Fear of loneliness. Fear of asking for the same respect he gave so freely. The man I am now isn't cruel or distant. He's just certain. Certainty isn't born in calm waters. It's born in fire. In the moment you realize that some people will take everything from you without a second thought. That they'll watch you crumble and still ask for more. I parked the car and looked up at the familiar lights in my window. My space. My rules. My life designed by me and for me. No more fixing. No more justifying. No more trying to rescue people who were never drowning. They were dragging me under. Just me now. And for the first time in a long time, that's more than enough. Staying and fighting for a love that no longer exists isn't bravery. Bravery is leaving the wreckage and building something better from what's left behind.